enemy.
That man was a colonel in our army, and I'm not gonna lie to you. And the place is dead. So, are you gonna get off your and do your jobs, or do you want to get back in that bucket? Now who's with me?
Sir, we are, sir!
That's more like it.
We're cutting through the tan lines today and invading Blintz lands to kill him and to stop his evil plans. But before we get started, I want to give a shout out to Katophoenix for yet another great art piece today. Be sure to check her out down below and to like and share the content if you enjoy it. Now let's start the invasion. Developed by Pandemic Games and published by 3DO, Army Man RTS is exactly what it says on the tin. It's a bunch of toy plastic army men in a real-time strategy game. A simple but enjoyable premise with plenty of room for humor and charm. Also one of the final games published by 3DO before they went under, and it's based upon the Dark Reign 2 engine. The game was developed in 15 months by 12 people. You take the role of Sarge, commanding your forces of the Green Army. Colonel Blintz, after receiving a major head wound, has gone insane, and he's crossed over to the tan side, taking over and ruling with an iron fist. Your job is to cross that picket fence and kick his ass. A simple story, but it has plenty of humor, both traditional and dark. Coupled with the solid gameplay, makes it fun to push forward and see more. 15 campaign missions with plenty of bonus missions for extra content, as well as multiplayer. Though this is only functional via LAN or direct console now, as the Steam version does not have it and the GameSpy servers are defunct. It's a solid RTS gameplay, especially for a console game. RTSs are uncommon on consoles, and even rarer are they done well. There is several changes that accommodate the different input style. It's also got a pretty traditional style of balancing here. You got armor, infantry, and air units, and they all balance differently. Snipers will mop the field with grunts, but something heavier such as a chopper or a tank will mow them down. There's also power-ups that are found in the world. And while in single player they only serve as a boost for you, in multiplayer they can shift the tide of the war into your favor, which is another difference to the traditional RTS. You manage two primary resources, plastic and electricity. Electricity is found by draining items like remotes, batteries, and such left in the world. Plastic is found in the same way, but it can also be found by cannibalizing the dead. Delicious tans. When a unit dies, it leaves behind a puddle of plastic. And the same is true for buildings. While this isn't the smoothest or the most in-depth of RTSs, but it is a good time and it has good gameplay. I'd say it's a good way to introduce someone to the genre. The biggest issue I've encountered in gameplay is the fact that units tend to bottleneck in entryways if you make too large of groups. If you're playing it on PC, it uses traditional keyboard and mouse. But on PS2 and the later GameCube port, it's been completely reworked to use a controller. And honestly, the controls are pretty good. Probably as good as it'll get on a console. Instead of a cursor, you press the circle button, which gives a selection ring. And how many times you press it changes the size of your selection. Triangle lets you easily flip through groupings you've already made, and square lets you add units to a grouping without accidentally deselecting other units, or to say add them from across the map. There's actually also a button that does nothing at all, and it actually shames you for pressing said button, which amuses the hell out of me.
Don't press the select button. It does nothing. Do not ever go near the select button. What you've just done can never be taken back.
You'll be facing the Tan Army and the native wildlife. The Tans have every unit you have, but they're led by a maniacal madman who has had part of his brains blown out and has painted himself tan. There's a large amount of units in the game, ranging from snipers, tanks, half-tracks, helicopters, grenadiers, mortar units, and more. The wildlife is also out to get you in this game. You'll be facing mostly ants and angry cockroaches who charge and unleash powerful ranged attacks, which if you aren't paying attention can wreck units. Overall, it's a pretty solid variety here. Cheesy, self-aware, and silly, the game knows what it is, and it doesn't pretend to be some big grandiose epic, but with just enough sprinkling of dark humor, reference to war and classical films, and even music albums. With memorable characters, there is something good here. Each mission title is a reference, the characters are over the top, and the setting is a suburban house and yard. A rather normal setting for a grand war between two armies of toy soldiers, which I find is amusing in how it influences level design.
Anyone feels like turning tail, I won't stop you. Hoover! Get back here!
Fairly simple here, a main theme, a remixing of that theme, and a couple different military-inspired tracks that play throughout the gameplay and rotate playing to vary it up. The music itself sounds pretty good, but could use some more variety. There's also a victory and a defeat theme that follow this pattern. The music, what is here, is pretty good, but I would have liked for there to have been just a little bit more. Not the strongest area for this game. It's about average for a PS2 game. It's not particularly detailed models and some slowdown when you get a lot of models on screen. Though there are some good sides to this area as well. There's plenty of solid animations to the unit models, and the unit models themselves look pretty good, especially as they are meant to be plastic toys. The world environment is large for each level, with lots of little things packed in, such as one level there's a PS2 you have to capture. There's also tons of little details hidden throughout the level, such as boxes of several of the previous games, a parody of Iron Maiden called Iron Rabbit. Lots of things like this hidden throughout the world for you to find. Let's start with the biggest issue. I'd say the average graphics and the occasional slowdown or the average soundtrack is the weakest element here. They just don't particularly stand out, outside of the character models. Those actually do look good and are amusing. The other thing is, you're playing an RTS with a console. While it's pretty well done, not everyone's going to enjoy using a controller. But this is a non-issue if you use the Steam version. But the Steam version loses out entirely on the option of multiplayer, which can only be done via LAN and such on the PS2 version now. So it's a give or take, traditional controls or the option to play multiplayer with friends. So we punched through the tans and we beat the shit out of Colonel Blintz. How do I feel overall about this game? Well, honestly, I like it. It's got charm and humor. It's got Jim Cummings as the voice of the Sarge. It's not a bad RTS either. It's fairly well balanced with plenty of variety in the enemies. Overall, I'd say it's a good time and definitely a good way to get into the genre. Now before I go, I want to give another shout out to Katophoenix for another great piece. And to remind y'all to check her out down below. Be sure to like and share the content as well, it does help the channel. This has been Core and I'm signing out.